Hello, everyone. I am so excited at this episode that we're about to bring you, a conversation with the most incredible woman, Karen Tisdell. Now, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my primary platform. It's the platform through which I am able to connect with amazing people around the world. It's a platform through which I build my positioning and I share a lot of my thoughts and my content and my ideas. And it's also a platform that for me has generated incredible opportunities, exposure, new clients, and business development. It's also a platform that many of my clients are using to build their business too. And I'm super excited because within my Inner Circle and Elevate community, we have access to the incredible Karen as part of our LinkedIn clinic that she runs very regularly for us, because it's about staying ahead of the curve. It's about knowing how to use this platform for your advantage. And I've had so many questions on LinkedIn since I relaunched this podcast at the beginning of the year, that at the beginning of last year, not this year, the beginning of last year, that I went, you know what, it's about time I introduced my community, my listeners, to the amazing Karen Tisdell. She has been on LinkedIn since 2005, and she launched her business around it in 2019. That's over 15 years that she has been using this platform, learning this platform, leveraging this platform, and she now helps hundreds, if not thousands of people around the world to be able to improve both how they appear and show up on LinkedIn, how they connect with the right people on LinkedIn, and most importantly, what their content and posting strategy should be to both elevate their brand, their business, and to attract leads. So Karen, she answered my call of, hey, Karen, do you fancy riffing about LinkedIn on my podcast? And she went, hell yeah. And we finally managed to sort it out. Welcome, Karen. So fabulous to have you here.
It is great to be here. I'm always a hell yeah with everything you are involved in, everything I've been involved in. Now, I have been on LinkedIn since 2009. Do you remember when you joined the platform?
I can't remember now. So I think I got into it big time. So as many of my listeners know, I had a solid corporate career, about a 20-year corporate career. So let's work backwards. I've been running my own business now for 14 years. So 14 years ago, I started on LinkedIn and I used it at the time. I left my corporate career. You know, I was known in my industry for what I did at work as that professional and that executive. And suddenly I was going out in the world to build my own business. And at the time, LinkedIn was where I wanted to play. And so I think from that very early day, Karen, I would spend time every single day connecting with people on LinkedIn, engaging in conversations with people on LinkedIn, and sharing my thoughts on LinkedIn. And so I've been doing that for 14 years now. And, just in full transparency for my listeners here, Karen is my go-to. So Karen, I can't remember when you and I started working with Karen, but I know that in that moment you shifted my thinking to yet another level of how to really use and leverage this platform. And hence why I've got you in my community teaching my clients the same thing. So I've given Karen permission to use me as the case study, the stuff I was doing wrong, the stuff hopefully I'm doing right now. But I really want this conversation to help all of you that are using LinkedIn to actually see the incredible opportunity that this platform gives you to build your positioning and to actually generate leads. And to prove that point, you don't have a really big website offering, do you, Karen? You get most of your business through LinkedIn. You've actually built your entire business through LinkedIn.
I have, absolutely. So I haven't been on LinkedIn for so long, and I just went and checked. You and I connected and started working together on LinkedIn in early 2020. And I remember you had spent a lot of time on the connection and the content, but not really on your profile. And it was increasingly, you were sort of thinking, I need a profile that converts. So that's how long we've been doing it. So I only got a website because I didn't meet you for so long. I didn't get a website, truth be told, until February 2020. So I had been growing my business since 2009 without a website. And before that time, I flew around Australia with Telstra twice. So did two national tours with them and had a lot of amazing work, both corporate and one-on-one. And it was all through my activity on LinkedIn. And I know you're on me about doing an email list. I still don't do any emails or things like that. I know. We're going to get together on Monday and I'm going to sort that out. And it's just all come through LinkedIn. So, it's been an amazing tool for me and for my clients.
So let's just, before we get into some of because I really want this to be an awesome conversation to give people some tips and tools, because essentially those are all the questions that are coming through. It's like, Janine, how do I show up on LinkedIn? Janine, how do I build my base on LinkedIn? Janine, what should I post on LinkedIn? And as you said, it's exactly what I did. I spent that first part of my experience on LinkedIn connecting, posting. But what became really apparent was my profile essentially on LinkedIn looked like my resume and my past. And what you really helped me with is essentially building that profile on LinkedIn around what I wanted my future self to look like. So we'll come to that in a second. But before we do, I get you're pretty biased because this is your platform of choice. But in your mind, why is LinkedIn one of the critical platforms that business owners and execs should be playing on as we move into this next decade?
I'd like to think I'm not unbiased because I try to always examine my views. I don't work for LinkedIn, so I'm quite critical of LinkedIn. And as we spoke about before, I was given an award by LinkedIn, who then took it away. I was given a Top Voice Award in 2018, who then took it away a year later because I was critical of them. So I try not to be biased. And what I love about LinkedIn is that unlike other platforms such as Instagram, which many people in your community really like, on Instagram, you can't easily see the country that people work for. And as far as I know, you can't see the jobs that they have and things like that. So you can't say, yes, this is somebody who will be my target market. These are my ideal prospects. So you're nurturing relationships without really knowing if they're the right relationships or if there's somebody who just can't actually afford your fees. So what I love about LinkedIn is that it's a search engine. You don't have to wait for happenstance to find the right clients. You don't have to go to the right networking event and hope that you're speaking to the right person. You can actually use the search filters, not for names, but for titles and for specific people, specific organizations. And you can be really targeted in who you're putting yourself in front of. And I just think that's magic because it saves so much time.
I agree. So let's delve in. And as I said, I give you full permission to use me as your case study of the stuff I did wrong and the stuff that we've changed. And hopefully there's a few bits of things in there that I'm doing right. But one of the things that I've heard you talk about relentlessly within my community is flipping the focus initially from attract, people, connect, to actually, how do you want to show up? What is the message? You talk about, you've got this beautiful IP around, it has to start with your profile, to then reach out to the people, to then think about your posting strategy. And that's what I really want to work through today so that our listeners can maybe rethink how they're approaching LinkedIn. So let's delve into profile first. I'd love you to share why it has to start here, maybe some of the mistakes that you see people doing, and what's the objective of this. And as I said, feel free to tear mine apart. I don't have a problem with that.
I love that. So I think a lot of people start with the posting, especially now, watching your journey on LinkedIn, because I was following you before we connected and started working together. And I'd already read 2 of your books. You were like, how? Really? And I was like, yeah, let me show them to you. I already have 2 of your books, 2 of your 3 books. And so people start with posting because the popular new idea is that they're taking ideas from Instagram and Twitter and thinking this is a place where I just show up and throw up. If I turn up and put out content, people will find me. It's not how LinkedIn works. You started with connections, and that's great. You want to build that audience before you start creating content, get an audience before you start busking. But I start with profile because you want something that will convert people. And let's not kid ourselves. Nobody's looking at profile all the time. And I'm saying this as a profile writer. People look at your profile when you first connect with them, or when they're somewhere along the buying journey, or when you're putting out enough content that they're thinking, maybe, which I guess is the buying journey again. So before you connect with somebody, you want to have a profile that converts. And when we first started working together, you talked to me about how you'd started up and sold a business, how you'd moved from England, not knowing anyone. And it's now been a long time since. How long have you been in Australia now?
Oh my gosh, I arrived in 2000. So I've been here, 20, what year are we in? 25 years. I've almost been here longer than I spent in my birth country. I know.
Absolutely. But you were still telling stories and still thinking, as many of us do, of how and why you started your own business and not having family and only having work colleagues and then leaving corporate and wanting to have a family of great women around you. And that's why you started your first business, and that's why Elevate and the Inner Circle have been so phenomenal. And I'm grateful to be in your communities. But we need to shift away from the stories that we have been telling and think, what is it we want? And also shift away from thinking about ourselves to thinking about our audience. You've always been very audience focused because as a marketer, you're always, and is that what people want? And people are like, oh, I never thought about that. So often I have clients say, Karen, could you please write my profile? I'm like, go work with Janine for a while first. Because if you don't know who you want to connect with, you're connecting with everybody randomly. If you don't know the problems you're solving and who you're solving them for and what you want your future business to look like, you tend to be stuck in the past. You tend to be talking to the wrong people, and that's all wasting a lot of time. So I'm very good at that writing piece, very good at finding the red threads. But what I don't have, which you do have, is that marketing ability to really dive into where are you going. And I can ask a few questions, but you really need to have that nailed before you start writing a profile.
Yeah. So what I love about what you're referencing here, we've got a mutual friend, the fabulous Donna McGeorge, and she talks about from the lens of productivity, capacity building, making decisions now that your future self will thank you for. And it's the same red thread through to what I do in terms of, okay, let's think about the business you want to build. Who are the clients you want to work with? And let's build a business in that way. And you're doing exactly the same thing here with LinkedIn. What you're saying is, this is an incredible, powerful platform for those of us that where our ideal clients are on LinkedIn, or the people that we want in our world are on LinkedIn. And what you're actually saying is to get that first bit right, your profile, to write your profile in such a way that your future self will thank you for. So it's not like I see all the time. And I see it particularly with corporate execs. I've been working with so many over the last few weeks, actually, and looking at their profiles with you in my head. I'm going, no, let me introduce you to Karen, because they're like, resume is just like, I am an experienced marketing director. I've spent 20 years working for, these are the brands. Look how awesome I am. I've done this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. And one of the big shifts in how you approach it, you do this, your red thread starts with this. Okay, what do you want people to be saying about you? What is the future you that you want to be presented on here? And the other flip that I've heard you work with people on, and again, you share it in our community, is be in service to your audience. Like, it's not about you. It's not about how awesome you are. We can see that further down. But that beginning bit, the about you, is your gift to your future connections around how you can help them, the compassion around their problems, maybe a bit of storytelling, all that sort of stuff is what you're talking about here in this profile, isn't it?
It certainly is. And this is why your profile, I often use, with your permission, as an example of my work, because when I am conducting a webinar or doing a workshop on how to write your LinkedIn profile, I always use your profile as an example, because your profile, if people have a look at it, in the top part of the about section, we have got 5 yous in the first couple of sentences. And I'm not talking about female sheep. I'm talking about yous, as in, are you struggling with this? Are you struggling with that? And most people start their profile talking about themselves because they think it's about themselves. And you actually have to meet your audience where they're at. So what's there, if you're running a business, what's your audience's pain? What's their problem? Where are they at? Show that you understand their world, and we've done that really well in your profile. And I do that with other clients, but sometimes clients of mine feel that it's just too many yous, or they might want to come across as quite combative. So starting a profile with a startling statistic or a polarizing statement or something that just makes the right people lean in. But you really want to start the profile with, yours is you've proven your brilliance, you've delivered powerful results, you went out on your own, but now you feel stuck and overwhelmed. This is so many of us, and it's important to meet your audience where they're at. And I also think it's really important to ask for the business. And I think a lot of people, when they're writing their profile, I can't find their contact details. And I don't want to connect with them, because what if they start selling to me? So you've also got to have a call to action at the end of your about section. And I believe in your experience sections. Your experience sections are really important, because if somebody scrolled that far down, you've earned the right to sell. And you want to go really hard in sort of saying, this is what you'll get, this is what it's going to cost, this is what it's like. And having those call to actions and making yourself really easy to buy from. So just flattening that path to purchase by putting in there your contact details, not creating barriers everywhere.
Yeah, that profile is like your billboard. It's like your personal advertising machine. And yet so many people write it as a resume. The other question that I am constantly asked is what to write in that headline. Now, I've heard you talking to our community about this. And again, I've been testing it, looking at some of my corporate clients, and the go-to is job title. People put their job title in there. Can you share why it needs to be a little bit more than that? Because what's really interesting, a couple of my corporates that I've challenged on that, since they've changed their headline, the engagement has actually lifted. And so if you can just add some of your smarts around that for our listeners, that would be fabulous, as to why actually that is the first bit of eyeball on you as your brand, and it needs to work for you, not against you.
And it needs to be interesting. Gone are the days of people wanting to pay attention. We're actively trying to tune things out. We've got so much information coming at us all the time that you need to be catchy, you need to be different, you need to be provocative. And at times, you need to use keywords in your headline, the bit that sits underneath your name, in order to ensure that you are capturing all the right keywords, because that lifts your visibility in a search. So having different words to explain what you do, and thinking about having something personal at the ending, thinking about having something that really, it might be a hobby or an interest or something you do, something that's a bit sticky, something that's a bit memorable is important. It's your digital handshake. And if you don't have those right keywords, if they're not sticky enough, you're not attracting, as executives, you're not attracting talent, you're not memorable to your clients, you're not deepening if and how people think of you.
I love that. Digital handshake. So profile equals digital handshake. What's your thoughts around building up the number of people and the best way to go about that? What is the best etiquette in your mind of building that people component of your profile?
I've got strong opinions on this, and I think you feel slightly differently about this. So I'd love to say what I think, but then, given we've known each other so well for so long, I'd love for you to argue back with that, because I think it's really great for people to create a LinkedIn strategy that suits them. The best and worst thing about LinkedIn is it's never a one size fits all. You've just got to be intentional about what you want and where you're going and decide for you. So I'd love to hear your counter discussion to this, because I know that we're not always aligned on this. So for me, I'm very selective with who I connect with. So that means that my connections tend to be in a bit of a bubble, and I'm only connecting with people who are likely to know people that I would want to know. So I'm not looking at everybody as a potential client, because I feel that that can create an energy that's a bit like a lion in a long grass waiting for a wounded zebra to come along. So instead, I just throw more metaphors around. Instead, I'm sort of thinking about it as driving a car. I'm not looking at the one right in front of me. I'm looking at the one in front of that one. So are you likely to know somebody? So I'm quite selective with who I connect with, and I advocate for all my clients to proactively spend once a fortnight looking for people using the search bar and looking for people that they will want to connect with and not overthinking it. And do it in batchet and do it when you're in flow and just connect. It's really great to do this with a friend, even if you both sit on Zoom or whatever. We have this set up in your community where we get together and online and we're all just connecting with people. So you're getting out there and you're doing it and you're not overthinking it. And then on the alternate fortnight, you're then looking at everybody you've recently connected with and you're sending them a note.
I think we're actually more similar than you think. So the key things that connect us here is the intentionality. I do exactly the same as you in terms of the intentionality around not just accepting every single person that comes through and equally not randomly connecting with every person that pops up. I'm very intentional around, it's a bit like we were talking about profile. I'm very intentional around two things. One is thinking through, are these people that I want in my world? Are these people that I could potentially support into some future? That might be the slight different, but also are these people I'd love to know because of who they know versus randomly accepting everyone. So I look at who they are, where they're from, what their job titles are, what sort of things they're doing, etc. And I'm very much like you. I'm not connecting in any way thinking about a sale. It's a curiosity around. The second thing that I'm quite intentional about is ensuring I build diversity into my connections. Because the risk is if we are not intentional about it, connections on LinkedIn all look the same, do the same, have the same views and opinions. So I'm also very intentional about being curious about who else is around the world, who else may have differing opinions to me, but works in the same space. So I think the thing that connects us is the intentionality. And with that comes my second piece around, particularly for anyone listening that has a business development in the corporate space. So if you're on your own, in your own business, and your audience is corporates, what we know is that corporates are a different animal to sell to. And my beautiful friend, Gabrielle Dolan, she's a phenomenal author in the space of storytelling. She speaks a lot about this stuff. Her entire business and practice is built in corporate. What we both discuss is you can't just know one person in that corporate. It doesn't work like that. Corporates are their own ecosystem. And so the way I approach my corporate angle is if I was wanting, let's imagine I had on my dream list a particular client, corporate client, let's just call them, I don't know, ABC. I would make sure that whoever I've met there in ABC, I am intentional about trying to connect with as many people in ABC as I possibly can. Because in organizations, you're selling not just to that individual. You're not just trying to get into that individual. The more people that get to know you, the more people are talking about you when you're not even in the room. And that's the way I approach corporates. And again, I think it was one of those things I did almost organically, and it's through conversations with you now that I double down on that and it's proven its weight in gold. Because, for example, I might write a post. I then might be pitching to an L&D team in company ABC. Let's imagine I go into the meeting and I go, oh yeah, we saw your post about, so-and-so was excited that you're coming in today. And even then when I go into the training room, there's people that are telling me about what they've seen, what they've read. They've already connected with me because I've made that effort. So I think we're actually very similar in that there's got to be intentional versus connect, swipe left, swipe right. I'm just going to sit here and try and build. You've got to have some thought behind it, which is like any strategy in business, right? You know, if we were doing a media campaign in print, we'd be thinking about it.
But you build diversity, and I'm not too sure I build diversity. So that's where I think we're different. I think you're you're that curious magician who's always thinking about, but what else is out there? Well, I tend to stay a bit in an ecosystem there. I do love what you said about connecting with everybody because you never want to have that key person risk. I think have a habit of going straight to the person that we most want to do business with, and you'll actually build trust if you connect with all of her teams first before you then connect with the CEO. Because by that time she's going, wow, look at all the people we've got in common. So it builds trust. It's clever for a number of reasons.
And I think for our listeners, the key thing to take out of here, so if I go back, profile, think of your profile as your digital handshake. Have a look at your profile and really get on that balcony and look at your profile as an outsider and go, is this the digital handshake I want this particular person to have for me? And if not, do something about it in terms of, listen to this piece of content in here around the profile. Check out Karen's LinkedIn profile herself. She's got so many assets on there that she can share. The second piece then is people. And the key things that have come out of this is being intentional and actually do the work. You've got to put in the reps. Like you talked about putting time in every fortnight. We have a target in our business of how many new people we are going to connect with on LinkedIn every single week. And it's intentional and there's time put aside. As you said, in my community, we put an hour aside every week. You've got to do the reps. You've got to put in the effort, like going to an in-person networking event. You can either choose to walk through the door and stand in a corner and not meet anyone, or you can choose to take a big deep breath, go through the door and introduce yourself. It's the same concept, just happens to be online. I don't know why people think it's different just because we're online. It's exactly the same. It's a human being you're trying to connect with. So you can watch your latest reality show binge and connect with people around the world. I love it. I've got so many amazing people in my world that I have never met in person, that I love the fact that I can go, I'm coming to Denver, who wants to catch up for coffee? I'm coming to Washington, who wants to catch up for coffee? I love it. Now, this final piece of your beautiful IP in this space is the posting. So we've gone profile, we've gone people, and now posting. Curious from your perspective, what you are seeing that people are doing wrong, and then let's talk about what people could consider doing.
I'm just seeing so many adverts. I just feel like I'm seeing advert after advert after advert. So I think many of us have almost a muscle memory thinking content equals advertising. I must create an advert. And actually, if you were at a party and people suddenly started selling to you straight away, it's so off-putting. Again, you've got to meet people where they're at. You've got to listen before you talk. Otherwise, people are just bored. They want to hear the sound of their own voice. So you want to repeat people's voices back to them by talking to their pain, talking to their problems, and giving solutions. I think what gives you such cut through in the market on so many levels with your podcast, with your books, with your LinkedIn work, and in your communities is your core value around generosity. You give and you give and you give. And we all need to be like that. We all need to be like famous chefs. Just give away all of your recipes. And then people will come to your restaurant. They'll pay a fortune to come to your restaurant because nobody is you. Nobody can do what you do the way you do it. So just give advice, give tips, give information. For me, what I feel people are doing wrong and doing too much of, because we've all got to sell sometimes, but just not every single post. And it's not even thinly veiled, like they're openly advertising. What do you see people doing wrong? Given that, we've spent so much time together.
Yeah, I think it's the same. They're almost putting so much content out there. And I think this is the biggest risk too, is that you've got to be really careful how you use these fabulous tools that we have got. And it's a balance, because the risk of using the fabulous tools that we've got is suddenly you've got all this content and it's easy to post content. And so the risk there, in my opinion, is that you're not being conscious or intentional about what you're sharing with your audience. You're just adding to the noise. The other thing I see is everything just looks the same. It's the same structure. It's the same bit of content which you're picking up as ads. I mean, I do think that particularly when you post, I think people could do less of it. That's one of the things you taught me. You don't need to be on LinkedIn. You don't need to be posting every single day. Less actually is more. It's the engagement. And we'll come on to this in a second. But it's giving people, I think the big shift is, as opposed to hardcore selling, give people an understanding of, in a beautiful way, of how they can access you if this resonates. And it's okay to invite people, to give people permission to knock on your door, to make a phone call. And I think that's what people struggle with. So they're either saying nothing and then hoping people go, oh, you know what? I think I could get Karen to help me with that, even though they don't know you, or it's in their faces. I talk about some critical pieces of content that we should look at, and it's playing around with this. In fact, I was talking about with my inner circle about this on Wednesday. And I think it's this balance between thought leadership. Like, what are you standing for? And think about that in the context of building your authority, building your positioning in your marketplace. You need to do that. There's your marketing campaign, how-tos, like give back, let your audience see, whether they know you or not right now, whether they're in your world or not right now, give them some tips that are going to help them get through that problem. I have recently, as you've picked up, doing a little bit of ranting. If you're going to stand for something, stand for something. And I think this is what we need right now. If you've got a differing opinion, if you've got something that you're passionate about, share it, but do it in a way that's respectful. The other piece of content I do often is defining moments, because I've discovered that many people are loving understanding how I got to that point, which is the vulnerability, which is sharing, which is letting people in a little bit. I did the one recently about resilience. And I showed a picture of Carter, but let people see that. Case studies, testimonials, let people know your results. And even, what's on your mind? What are you thinking? What are you noticing? I think in the world that we're in right now, our competitive advantage is what we think. And there's too many people not thinking. There's a lot of people telling. There's a lot of people sharing solutions. But this space of curiosity of what you're noticing and what you're thinking without giving an answer is actually what we need, because that's what's opening minds. So there's various types of content that I share, and I work through it because I'm, Janine Disco Ball. I'm not just Janine online. I've got a life. And this is me. And I think that's part of what I would be encouraging people to do more of, to just get curious and relax a little bit more around the content that they're sharing, but the intentionality that whatever they're sharing has to serve their audience, has to give their audience, not just be a, hey, look at me, I'm awesome every single time and buy from me, because that's icky. That's like being a car yard salesperson. So it's an artistry.
It is. And I love how you spoke about not always having an answer. I always have an answer in my head, but sometimes I have completely opposing answers. Sometimes I have 3 answers in my head and I'm like, Janine, which one's right? So ponder aloud, I think that's really great. So I think a lot of people treat content like it's a billboard, and actually we need to think of it as a conversation. So you want to start conversations, you want to contribute to conversations, and treating it like a conversation. I'm thinking this, but I'm also thinking that. What do you all think? Encourage people in. It's about building those relationships, which you're such a genius at.
Can we just talk about that bit? I'm learning from the best, Karen. Can we just talk, because you are brilliant at the engagement piece. I'm literally going, can I just be a little bit more like Karen? Like the way that you engage, comment, like you don't post that frequently, and yet the engagement on your profile is significant because of how you actually show up in LinkedIn. And like you just said there, it's about a conversation. Can you just share with the audience again a couple of tips of, even if they're not posting, because I think that's what stops people showing up. I've got nothing to say, but actually you have got something to say. And I love how you do this. I love how you, because can you share that example of you hadn't posted for weeks, months, or whatever it is, and then, it hadn't stopped your engagement in LinkedIn?
I really don't post often enough. But what I do is I have some rules for myself around constantly contributing to other people's posts. So like you, my core value is generosity. And so how that shows up for me is when people create content, I try as much as I can to comment on it. So I have a rule for myself. Whenever I open LinkedIn, if I've got time to open LinkedIn, I've got time to like a comment, to like a post. And if I can, I'm commenting on it. So I'm trying to comment on as many people's posts as I can, even when I don't have time to create content. I'm also really active in the DMs. So something that you and everybody doesn't see is I'm often DMing people. And so I'm building relationships, not always standing on my soapbox or busking, but very much sort of working the crowd and working around. And then when I do create content, Donna McGeorge is a great example. I try to comment on all of her posts because I just love Donna. And then when I create content, I know that when Donna sees it, she's like, oh, Karen's created content, and she's on it, because it's just a law of reciprocity. People can't help themselves. Like, oh, Karen's always supported me. And I don't do it to get, that sounds very contrived. For me, it's about just championing a lot of my previous clients and championing people who I really like. And it just has this wonderful ripple effect of keeping you memorable, and also an algorithm effect as well. So if you do not comment on any people's posts, your content won't do well. You need to be commenting on at least 9 other people's posts, every one of your own. 9 and 1 is as a very minimum.
I love that. And that 9 to 1 is, again, let's just say that again so people hear it. So what Karen was actually saying there was the commenting on 9 other people's posts before you share content as a minimum is a thing that's going to help. Whereas I think what most people are doing is they're just putting content out there and then stepping away. The other piece while we're on this, Karen, can you just share the rationale around why once you post, don't just switch off and disappear for 3 days? Like that piece around looking at when people do comment, the engagement and how that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. So my LinkedIn mentor in the UK calls this nursing a post. So when you have put out a post, nurse it. So when people comment on it, comment back, respond to comments. So again, it's treating it like a conversation. So I always think that when you're liking someone else's post, it's kind of like was that Janine? I think that was Janine. I'm not too sure. I'll give a slight smile just in case. When you're commenting on somebody's post, it's like, hey, Janine, how are you going? And, and you see me and we exchange a couple of sentences. So when somebody comments on your post and you've not responded, it's like you've just kept walking and you haven't even acknowledged it. So like and comment on people's comments. And if you do that within a short time of them commenting, if you can, it's not always possible, then that will get more people into the conversation, because your post will do really well for the first 7 hours. I mean, posts can stay in your feed for weeks, sometimes even years, but it will do really well for the first 7 hours, and then you've got 14. So it goes in blocks of 7, actually. And those first 7 hours are really critical, and you want to get lots of comments and genuine comments, and you want to be giving comments yourself. So really thinking of it as conversations.
What's your advice for people that go, Karen, I'm posting, but I'm not getting any engagement. I'm not getting many likes. I'm curious what your thinking is around that, because it's human nature, isn't it? You're putting in the effort and it's like, oh my God, this doesn't seem to be getting the traction. I've got a view on this, but I'm curious from your perspective as the expert in this space, what advice would you, because I'm sure there's listeners here that are going, yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. I've been on LinkedIn for years. I post, but I'm not getting comments and it feels like such a waste of time. What's your thought on that?
3 things on that. One, I caught up for dinner. I haven't even shared the photo with you yet, but I caught up for dinner with a whole load of people from your community. Yeah, Rachel was in town. I don't know if you knew that we were all catching up. So some of us were all catching up for dinner. And somebody said that their impressions were dropping. So I'm not getting many views of my content. So I'm creating more content. So it's kind of 1 and 2. So 1 on that. Impressions may look like they're dropping. I don't believe there are. I believe they're actually just getting more accurate. Yes, more and more people are creating content, so supply and demand, it is harder to get traction, but content is still important to ensure that you are remembered and to deepen if and how people think of you. So don't think that your impressions are dropping and you're getting a lot less views. You're probably just getting more accurate numbers from LinkedIn. 2, on that, don't think that the trick to getting views is to create more content. It's actually not. If you train people that it's okay to skip your posts because they don't have time to read it because you're putting out so much content, you're almost creating a habit for them on it's okay to skip Karen's content. So less is more. Do a little bit less content and double down, triple down, if such an expression exists, on commenting on other people's content. And also DMing people. Direct messaging people is not going to lift the visibility of your content, but getting a response back will. So if you've exchanged a few DMs with somebody, rather than email them, when you go and email them, just think, oh, could I put this on LinkedIn? Because if you do and they respond, I'm going to be in Adelaide next month for a LinkedIn event that I'm running. Would you like to catch up for coffee? Do that in a LinkedIn message. If they respond, next time you create content, that person will see your content. So again, that's another algorithm trick to just sort of boost your visibility. You can also even collect the link and send it out to a few of your mates and just sort of say, hey, would you mind commenting on this? But don't do that to clients and don't do it all the time because it gets really annoying.
Yeah, I love that. So the other piece I would add to this is it is a bit of a long game, right? You have got zero idea who is watching your stuff, and particularly if your market is corporate business, CEOs, etc. I believe, and I've got no evidence for this apart from the resulting business that comes for me, is that people are watching your content. They might not comment because of whatever reason, but they're watching, they're observing, they may not like, and I think that's okay because at some point it comes back and they'll go, like you, Karen, I've had posts from 12 months ago that suddenly start taking off again, or I've walked into restaurants and someone's come and told me about a post that they've seen and how awesome it was. And I have no idea who they are because they haven't shown themselves. So I think the decision is if you believe that your ideal clients, the people that you want to work with in the future, the people that you would love to know you are hanging out on LinkedIn as one of the platforms, then play. If you are not playing, then you might as well be the world's best kept secret. So it's almost a non-negotiable that if that's where they are, if you're in the business of service, adding value, helping those people overcome whatever challenges and problems that they're experiencing, if you're all about helping them, you've got to let them know that you exist. So to me, it's just non-negotiable at the moment.
No comments doesn't mean no views. It doesn't. Like, people are still seeing it. And increasingly I'm hearing from people, oh, I don't comment on posts that are outside my area of expertise, but they still read them.
Yeah, exactly. Before we wrap this up, my question for you is, what are your thoughts about the best way, the right way, the best etiquette around getting people to move from the platform into your world so that you can essentially take that conversation outside of the platform? I'm curious for any tips, thoughts, ideas that you've got.
Absolutely. I do have a very ugly spreadsheet on this, actually, which if anybody wants to reach out to me, I can share, just about how I really believe we need to drip feed people, not with spam, but just reach out, connect with them, then follow up with a voice note or leave them a message saying, thanks for connecting. Just keep it really, if it's a written note, really short. If it's a voice note, it has to be short. Then a few months later, reaching out with, I saw a podcast. I heard this podcast. I think you'd be interested, specifically at 17 minutes in. So you want to sort of make it feel really personalized. It has to be genuine or feel very genuine. And it can't be a podcast that you yourself have been on. It can't be self-promotional. And then again, following up with there's this conference that's around the industry that we're both in. Are you going? It'd be great to put a face to the name. Or I happen to be in your city. Or I'm having a habit of never eating alone on a Friday and I like catching up with interesting women in my network. It'd be great to catch up sometime. This is a Calendly link for when it's available. And then in that Calendly link, you've got the restaurant and who will be paying and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's increasingly important to move people offline. On LinkedIn, it's the world's biggest database. We have got over 1 billion members, and recently released LinkedIn stats, we've got 16 million members just in where you and I are in Australia alone. 16 million, which is a massive amount of our population. I think about 1,000 of them are my mum trying to figure out what I do. But, I think it's all about using LinkedIn to find people, to let people know what you do, but then try and shift it offline as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Any specific tips about getting people onto your own database? Or do you think it comes through naturally that process of connecting?
Yeah. I'm good at getting people offline into those coffees and teaching my clients to do that. Where I think my marketing genius falls down, but yours kicks in, is thinking about those lead magnets, and also, the genius that you've taught us, which I'll be putting in place on Monday next week, around, marketing lists. And like you and I have riffed before about this idea of you could have content which drives views to your email newsletter. If you'd like to know more about this, sign up to my newsletter. And then on your newsletter, you could have other times where on your newsletter you just give half of the information. You say, would you like to find out more? Join me on LinkedIn. So you've got the two serving each other. So you and I have talked about that. Just hand on heart, I haven't done it yet. But I will, Janine. I will. I totally will. Watch this space.
As an example of that, if anyone's interested, go look at my profile. I had a client reach out, literally said, "Oh my God, Janine, I didn't realize you had a YouTube channel," which is what this podcast goes on. And I went, "Oh my gosh, I haven't shared that for a long time." And I put a post on LinkedIn about my YouTube channel. And at the weekend, we were looking through some data, and my husband went, "Oh, wow. What on earth have you done? Your YouTube subscriptions have gone up." And I went, "Well, that's interesting. That'll have been that LinkedIn post."
That'll be me actually telling people, I have a YouTube one. And using your featured section as well. I mean, how many times do you and we've talked about how people will often put their posts in their featured section on LinkedIn. And if people are going, what's the featured section? If you just look at your profile and you click add profile, add new section at the very top, new message. So add or open to. Add new profile section, then it's under recommended. And LinkedIn's always pushing people to put their posts in there so that it can keep you on platform. If you've got a great lead magnet, something that's collecting email addresses, put it in your featured section. Put your website in your featured section. Like, think about, again, what it is you want.
Oh, Karen, this is why you're in my world. This is why I love the fact that you are our resident LinkedIn expert in my world, because to pick your brains, to learn from you, both in that community every couple of months, but also the advice you give me to help me with my platform is just insanely awesome. And there's no doubt about it that LinkedIn has supported and helped me build my business over the 14 years that I have been doing what it is that I do. These critical pieces that you talked about, again, it's that profile, that ability to think and take ownership of your digital handshake. I love that. That on its own doesn't work. It is about the people. It is about being intentional, thoughtful, showing you that you care, and really connecting intentionally and bringing people into your world. And then that final piece around posting. It's not just about putting stuff out there and adding to the noise. It is about sharing. It's about being interesting. I love your conversation around, commenting and engaging with people and really entering into communication. And that technique, that tip around the 9 to 1 is literally genius in terms of any of those that want the framework. But overarching this is that piece that both you and I are passionate about, that if your clients are on LinkedIn, if the people that you want to know you are on LinkedIn, think about LinkedIn as the community of where they're hanging out, and be you. Show up as you, share as you, connect and engage as you, and you meet incredible people as a result. That's how you and I have met. Karen, I want to thank you. Anybody listening to this, I know Karen won't like me doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway because she is a genius in this space. You've guessed it, my friends. If you want to connect with LinkedIn, if you want to connect with Karen more, you find her on LinkedIn. That is the best place to find her, Karen Tisdell. She has so many resources on there, so make sure you check that out. If any of you are curious about how you can leverage your LinkedIn, how you can improve your profile, or even, in this world that we're in right now, where every single one of us, whether you're a small business or large business, is looking to do business development, one of the critical places through which you can have a much more influential voice, how you can attract people into your brand, how you can attract the talent that you are looking for, is this platform. And if you're curious about how to help yourself and your team strategically use LinkedIn, this is your woman. So reach out to Karen. She's a genius in this space, and I love having you in my world. Thank you, Karen, for everything that you have done for me, everything that you do for my community. I am forever grateful to have you in my world. And for those of you listening, if you have loved this episode, please share it with anyone that you feel would benefit from hearing Karen's insights and her and I riffing and having views on LinkedIn. Please, leave some comments and reviews. I am your host, Janine Garner. And until next time, have a truly remarkable week. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you so much.